She was standing in my driveway with that smug smile, pointing at the broken wooden gate that was still swinging from the fresh cut. The sound of the chainsaw hadn't even faded when she shouted, "This is HOA property. You're not allowed to block this entrance." I stared at her, breathing heavy, trying to make sense of it. That gate wasn't HOA property. It was ours. My grandpa himself built it 20 years ago after buying this land outright. But there it was, split down the middle, chunks of wood on the ground, and Karen, the so-called HOA president, standing like she had just delivered justice. Grandpa came out of the barn, slow but steady, holding a rag in his hand. He glanced at the wrecked gate, then at me, then at her. "Who told you this was yours to touch?" His voice was calm, but I could see his jaw tighten. She didn't even flinch. "You people don't follow rules. This fence violates HOA code and now it's gone. If you don't like it, call the cops." Then she pulled out a folded piece of paper with the HOA letterhead. But even from a distance, I could see the ink bleeding and the crooked logo. It was fake. I whispered, "Grandpa, don't. She's trying to provoke us." He didn't answer. He just walked back into the barn. Karen smirked, muttered something about fines and eviction, and turned to take pictures of the damage with her phone. Then the barn door creaked. Grandpa wheeled out a tripod, metal clanking against the floor. For a second, Karen laughed, thinking it was just some old farm tool. But when the sunlight hit it, her smile froze. A belt-fed M60 machine gun, older than me, mounted and ready. Grandpa's hand steady as stone. He didn't point it at her. He didn't raise his voice. He just said one line that made my blood run cold. "You really want to play law on my land?"
Karen's phone slipped from her hand when she realized he wasn't bluffing. The camera app was still open, recording, but she was too frozen to pick it up. "You can't have that here," she stuttered, taking a shaky step back. Grandpa didn't move closer, didn't aim, he just kept his voice steady. "Lady, I carried this across 2 tours. If you think a paper you printed at home gives you more rights than I bled for, try me." I felt my chest tighten. This wasn't a joke anymore. "Grandpa, please," I whispered, pulling at his arm, but his eyes were locked on her. Karen swallowed hard, then suddenly pulled out her phone again, fumbling to dial. "I'm calling security. You'll be arrested for threatening a board member," she barked, trying to sound powerful again, though her voice cracked. Minutes later, a black SUV rolled up. No sirens, no badges, just 2 guys in cheap uniforms that screamed "mall cop." They stepped out like they owned the place, one of them even resting his hand on a holster that clearly carried no real weapon. "Step away from the firearm," the taller one ordered, puffing out his chest. Karen grinned again, finding her courage behind them. "Yes, arrest him. He pointed that at me." Grandpa didn't even blink. He reached into his vest pocket and pulled out a wallet. Worn, leather, edges frayed. Inside was a card I had seen only once before. He held it up between 2 fingers so they couldn't miss it. "I don't think you boys want to play pretend in front of a retired sheriff." The silence that followed was heavier than the weapon itself. The taller fake cop's face drained of color. He lowered his hand from the holster so fast it almost looked like he'd been burned. The other one stammered, "Sheriff? We were just called for a, community check." Their cheap badges glinted in the sun, more like plastic toys than real law. Karen stepped forward, red with anger. "Don't listen to him! He's lying! That gun is illegal, and he threatened me! Do your job and arrest him!" She jabbed her finger toward Grandpa, her voice shrill enough to cut glass. Grandpa didn't move, didn't raise his voice. He just set the M60 down, folded his arms, and looked at them like he was back in uniform. "Boys, impersonating law enforcement is a felony, and trespassing on my land with fake authority," he gave a slow shake of his head, "not smart." The shorter one started backing away toward the SUV, mumbling, "Man, I told you this was a bad idea." Karen spun on him, screaming, "Don't you dare walk away! You're supposed to protect me from these criminals!" That's when Grandpa gave a quiet laugh, low and sharp. He pointed toward the oak tree near the driveway, where a small blinking light was barely visible. Karen followed his gaze and froze. A security camera. The red light had been on since the moment she fired up her chainsaw. Every word, every threat, every fake notice, it was all recorded. I leaned closer to her phone, still lying on the gravel. The screen was cracked, but the recording was still running. 2 cameras, 2 angles, no escape. Grandpa bent down just enough so Karen could hear him clearly. "Funny thing about the law," he said softly, "it doesn't bend for people who scream the loudest. It bends for the truth." And that's when real sirens echoed down the road.
Karen's face went pale the second the sirens grew louder. She spun around, pointing at us like a cornered animal. "They're here for you! You're finished!" she shouted, her voice breaking with panic and rage. The fake cops froze in place, caught between running and pretending they still had authority. 2 county cruisers rolled up, dust kicking off the gravel. This wasn't the cheap SUV show anymore. These were real deputies, lights flashing, radios crackling. They stepped out calm, hands near their belts but not tense, the kind of posture that said they'd seen it all before. Karen bolted toward them, waving her arms. "Officers, arrest him right now! He's got a machine gun! He threatened me! He's a danger to this whole neighborhood!" She pointed so wildly that spit flew from her mouth. "And these 2, they were helping me enforce HOA rules!" One deputy raised an eyebrow, glancing at the so-called security guards. The taller one looked like he was about to faint. The shorter one blurted out, "She hired us. We're not cops. She said it was legal." The words tumbled out like he couldn't hold them back any longer. The deputy's jaw tightened. He looked at Grandpa, then at the tripod still standing beside the barn. "Sir, mind explaining what's going on here?" Grandpa didn't say a word. He just pointed toward the oak tree camera. I stepped in, holding up Karen's dropped phone. "Everything's on video, from 2 angles. The chainsaw, the threats, the fake notices, the fake cops, all of it." Karen froze mid-breath. Her eyes darted from the camera to the deputies, then to the neighbors who had started gathering at the edge of their driveways, phones out, recording. Her empire of control was crumbling in real time. Grandpa finally spoke, voice steady as ever. "I didn't fight for this country just to be told I can't put a fence on my own land." The crowd went dead silent. Even the deputies paused for a beat. And then one of them said words that made Karen stumble back like she'd been slapped. "Ma'am, you're under arrest."
Karen shrieked so loud the dogs in the distance started barking. "Arrest him, not me! Don't you see the gun? He's a maniac! He threatened me!" She tried to dart behind one of the deputies, as if hiding would somehow erase what she'd done. But the deputy didn't budge. He motioned to the other officer, who was already slipping cuffs from his belt. "Ma'am, you're being charged with trespassing, vandalism, filing false reports, and," he glanced at the fake uniforms still lingering near the SUV, "soliciting impersonation of law enforcement." The taller fake cop groaned, covering his face with both hands. "Man, we're screwed." The shorter one just kept repeating, "She said it was legal! She said it was legal!" like it was some kind of prayer. Karen kicked at the gravel, her voice rising into a screech. "You don't understand! I am the HOA! I have the authority! This neighborhood listens to me, not you!" Her wrists were pulled behind her, steel snapping shut with a finality that silenced even her ranting. Neighbors who had been watching from their lawns started clapping, some cheering under their breath. One older man in a baseball cap muttered, "About damn time somebody stopped her." Another woman whispered to her friend, "She fined me $500 for planting tulips too close to the sidewalk." Karen thrashed, her hair wild, eyes darting everywhere like she still thought she could talk her way out. I'll sue all of you. This is harassment. My lawyer will—" But then Grandpa, calm as ever, reached down and clicked a button on a remote in his hand. The barn doors slid open wider, revealing rows of equipment, boxes stacked neatly, and along the wall, dozens more cameras, each with blinking red lights. Every corner of the property had been covered. Every word she'd said, every move she'd made, wasn't just recorded once, it was backed up 10 times over. Grandpa looked at her, then at the deputies. His words landed like a hammer. Truth doesn't need a lawyer. It just needs proof.
They pushed Karen toward the cruiser, but she fought every step, twisting her body like a child being dragged to timeout. "This isn't over! I run this neighborhood! He's dangerous! He has a machine gun, you idiots!" Her voice cracked into a high-pitched screech as the deputies finally shoved her inside and slammed the door. The neighbors' phones lit up, recording every second. Grandpa walked back to the tripod, calmly unhooking the belt from the M60 like he just finished a farm chore. One of the deputies gave him a wary look. "That's quite a piece of hardware, sir." Grandpa's lips tugged into the faintest grin. "Decommissioned. Been welded for display since the 90s. Loud, heavy, but it don't fire a damn thing." He patted the side of it like it was an old dog. Scared the hell out of her, though. The deputy actually laughed under his breath, shaking his head. Well, it worked. That laughter didn't last long, because the shorter fake cop suddenly blurted out, She paid us to cut that gate down. Said she'd get the HOA to cover us, give us a bonus. We didn't want to do it, but she threatened to blacklist our company." His words spilled like a dam breaking. The taller one groaned, "Shut up, man!" But it was too late. The truth was out. The deputy jotted it down, eyes narrowing. So not only did she vandalize private property, she coerced others into doing it. That's another charge. The crowd murmured louder now, neighbors whispering with a mix of relief and vindication. Someone shouted, "She fined me for parking in my own driveway!" Another yelled, "She tried to evict my parents for having a flag in the yard." Every confession piled higher, the myth of her authority crumbling into dust, right there on the gravel road. Inside the cruiser, Karen pounded her fists against the window, her voice muffled but still venomous. "I own this place! You'll regret this! Every one of you!" Grandpa didn't even look at her. He just lit a cigarette, exhaled slow, and said in that same steady voice that silenced the whole crowd, "Funny thing about power. When it's fake, it always ends up choking the one who grabs it too tight." The deputy closed his notebook, nodded once, and said words that made the neighbors break into cheers. "She won't be running this HOA anymore."